Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. That's my guy.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. Joining me, as always, is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
I'm tired, man. Carrying this burden of being a 3-0 teams fan, it's a lot on me. How are you?
I'm doing good. Shout out to Ryan Clark, I guess, for seeing the light about Jaxson Herbert, despite 3 weeks ago, him basically saying that he wasn't shit, but yeah, better late than never. Apparently, the Chargers have played. Yeah, they've played so many big games in the last 3 weeks that's enough for him to change his mind that Jaxson Herbert is now a winner.
Yeah, amazing what beating the Raiders on primetime can do for franchise's outlook.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you and I have kind of talked about this. I feel like Justin's just playing the same. Like he's scrambling a little bit more, but he's doing the same things that he has always done, and it's just now he has an actual head coach and a defense that can match. So
yeah, amazing.
It is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, like, to be completely honest, Herbert's had one great game and two, it's fine, or like the pocket maneuvering and all that was really impressive, but he hasn't had like 3 great elite games.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of more of the same. And it's good. It's good football, and he's an MVP candidate for a reason. But his team just doesn't suck. So
yeah,
they're 3-0.
Yeah, there was like a graphic I saw of like defensive EPA per play of like the previous 3 seasons, and obviously with like the Brandon Staley era, the Chargers are like very far down on the left, and then since Jesse Minter has been here, they're very much in the right. So it's like he finally has a team that can match, and obviously the head coach as well. So we'll get into some of Herbert versus the Giants and stuff like that today. That's what we're here for. Chargers at Giants preview. Chargers looking to go 4-0. I don't think they've been 4-0 since I should have looked this up, but the last time the Chargers were 3-0, they ended up being 3-1. So it has been even longer than that since they've been 4-0. And believe it or not, that previous 3-0 Chargers team somehow managed to not make the playoffs. So thankfully for the Chargers this year, they're on a very much different track. So here to preview Chargers and Giants. Very much a game that has gotten more interesting with the decision to play Jaxson Dart. I think if they were playing Russell Wilson, it would be very less interesting, but it is what it is. Before we get started on our Chargers Giants preview, of course, have to give a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast and every episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks, where it pays to be right. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. This is obviously a time where we don't want you to miss any excitement of the season over on Prize Picks. We have been talking about the Jaxson Herbert numbers for quite some time. They're still pretty low for this current week. Obviously, there's a lot of other numbers you could get in on. Omari Hampton is going to be the featured back going forward. This is a great matchup this week for Mr. Omari Hampton, so make sure and get in on the action. All you have to do is go to Prize Picks, pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is also the best way to get any action on sports in more than 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So go download the app today. Use the code GUILTY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that is the Prize Picks app, code GUILTY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right. As always, we have a slideshow, and a great one at that, with the theme set up over here by Tyler as a potentially sinking ship here. So the New York Giants, preview is rearranging the deck chairs week 4, 2025.
Yeah, I couldn't find just Giants theme. I thought maybe blue, and I was like, why not the Titanic, man? They're switching quarterbacks, but what are we doing? We're rearranging deck chairs on the sinking Titanic. So, yeah, this, I hope they're good after this week. I don't anticipate that being the case.
Yeah, there's quite a few teams that they are rearranging some deck chairs and potentially, the Falcons fired their receivers coach this week.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Titans are switching play callers and they're skipping their offensive coordinator and going to the quarterbacks coach, Bo Hardigree, who called plays for the Raiders after they fired Antonio Pierce. It's not a good sign for some of those coaches, and I think the seat is starting to get a little hot for Mr. Brian Daboll.
Yeah, obviously the thing about these quarterbacks is we've seen with the Chargers, you can bring in a great new rookie quarterback, he can be one of the greatest rookies of all time, and it still doesn't save your job. So we'll see what this regime ends up being if they stick around. I don't know if they've given certain assurances, but we'll talk about it. But the combination of the Giants being a dumpster fire and the Colts with Daniel Jones being as good as they are is even worse for Brian Daboll in this regime.
Yeah, 100%. Great picture here. Obviously, if you watch Arrested Development, we appreciate you here on the Guilty as Charged podcast. I love that show. Giants offseason review. Here we go. Most notable changes, including free agency. They signed Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland. Two very expensive moves that I think a lot of people were big fans of. And at least right now, it has not panned out. They signed Russell Wilson. He was just benched. They signed James Hudson, who was benched. Chauncey Golston, who might miss today's game, but he's a good run defender for them. Roy Robertson Harris, Jameis Winston, who they signed and won't play, and he is very clearly QB3. I don't understand. And then interior offensive lineman Greg Van Roten. So bit of a mixed bag from a free agency standpoint. Departures, nothing crazy outside of Daniel Jones. Granted, they released him in November 2024, as Tyler put on the screen here. But Azeez Ojulari, who's a healthy scratch in Philadelphia, would love to get him on the Chargers for what it's worth. Jason Pinnock, who is starting for the 49ers. Drew Lock, who is the backup in Seattle to Sam Darnold tonight. And then Adoree Jackson, also another Philadelphia Eagle, who is like getting cooked on a weekly basis out there. So no crazy additions, no crazy departures. It's kind of what you get when you have a bad roster.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Spending big on defense, especially in the secondary, but your defense, despite all of its talent, is still really bad. Where have I heard this story before? Oh, yeah, the Chargers. Unfortunately, I don't know how it's possible for the Giants to be as bad as they are overall on defense, and yet here they are. And it's like they didn't play the Bills and the Ravens, the Lions the first 3 weeks. Okay, their last game was against the Chiefs, one of the worst offenses right now, and they're still one of the worst defenses in the league. It's dreadful. Like the story is the quarterback change, but they did all of this and trying to do not the hundreds of millions of dollars on defense, but you'd think like Holland and Adebo could do something for you. They're just bad. It's kind of a stunner.
Yeah, looking at the numbers, I was shocked, and we'll get into some of them in a second here. But just like imagine what this version of the Chargers coaching staff could do with the talent that the Giants have, and the Giants are just like they have no business being as bad as they are, but it is very bad. Speaking of bad coaching decisions, Abdul Carter, their first round pick, number 2 overall, I want to say, or 3 overall, something like that. He played 43 snaps at linebacker this week instead of edge rusher because, of course, they took Jaxson Dart after trading back up into the draft for him. He is going to start against the Los Angeles Chargers. Darius Alexander, a player that I think we really liked, at least I really liked in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
he's played 14 snaps on the season. Cam Scadaboo looks good. Good job on Cam Scadaboo. Marcus Bow, who has been kind of flip-flopping with James Hudson and Andrew Thomas. He has allowed 9 pressures in like 90 snaps, which is not very good. And then Thomas Fedone and Corey Black are not playing very much. So if you're wondering why the Giants are 0-3, this screenshot is a big indicator of why they're 0-3.
Man, oh man. Abdul Carter playing linebacker. That just hurts me, man. The Giants, somehow they got something out of Andrew Thomas after like the 4th year. Otherwise, they've got to be one of the worst draft and develop teams in the NFL. Like that is dreadful. I mean, they also have Banks, they have Newbin, some other players they've invested in over the years, just not panning out. Ugh. Abdul Carter playing a linebacker. You like, there was some discussion to where like Micah Parsons, like, can he play some linebacker, but he's an edge rusher. Always a great edge rusher. Great. Let's play him at edge. Yeah. Abdul Carter playing how many linebacker snaps?
43.
Get the fuck out of here, man. That's so stupid. I don't understand that at all. That's crazy to me.
But please keep doing that this week.
Yeah, no, totally. That's, you know what? Go for it. No, not a problem. Trey Pipkins a little banged up this week. Play him at linebacker. Play Abdul Carter at linebacker. No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the Giants draft history, like probably on draft weekend, you would have felt good about it. But now in hindsight, like there's just not a lot of good players coming out of these drafts. Andrew Thomas, like he had a horrible rookie season. And now he's one of the best left tackles in the league, which is great. But there's just not a lot of positive draft picks. And Kayvon Thibodeau looks good, but he's still kind of more of like a DPR type. But they drafted him 7th overall or 5th overall, I forget. And the player they drafted that year also was Evan Neal, who again, like a lot of people liked, but he's a healthy scratch each week for them. So it's just it's bad. And I think the one thing I'm learning from like a roster construction standpoint is that you really need your coach and your GM to be on the same page, lock and step. And when you are, you get development like the Chargers are getting. When you're not, you get what they were getting under Brandon Staley and Anthony Lynn. And like, that's what's happening to me. And it's bizarre because Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen go way back. And yet this is what it looks like. So, coaching and front office decisions go hand in hand. And I think that gets underrated when you're talking about this kind of stuff. But man, the Giants' decisions have not been great. And that obviously has them starting 0-3 for a reason. Daniel Jones looks incredible in Indianapolis. And granted, again, coaching matters a whole lot there. He did also spend a season with, not a season, but half a season with Kevin O'Connell. Maybe Kevin O'Connell is like the big reason there. The Giants, they are 20th in EPA per play on offense. It has been very, very bad. Did you watch the game against the Chiefs or just like?
I did. I did. It was a lot of really good Cam Scatterboo and Tyron Tracy, a little bit to the tight ends, and then Wilson just going like, I don't know, that, and then just like praying something worked, and it didn't.
I can't remember the last time I saw a like veteran quarterback like him just throw the football 10 yards out of bounds in the end zone on a fourth down in the red zone. Like obviously Derek Carr did it quite often and Geno did it at like the end of the game, but they had like a chance to be in the game still at that point, and he's chucking the ball out of the end zone. They're doing zone read stuff with him. Again, just it's bad coaching to me all up and down in this one. So they're making a switch to Jaxson Dart this week against the Chargers, despite playing the Saints next week. And I think a big part of that is obviously like they're feeling some pressure in New York to get something to kind of make a stamp. And if Jaxson Dart looks good, then the coaching staff could potentially stay around. And I think that's the main reason why they're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, Braden Vahoko did the entire Lord's Prayer like on social media just because he's like, why are you doing that this week for Dart against Minter? At work today, people were like, oh, they're starting Dart today or this Sunday against Minter, that 3-0 Chargers team. Good luck. I mean, everybody from people I work with to NFL players to all the media members to us are like, this is really stupid. But hey, you know what? Go for it. Granted, maybe it can't get any worse. I would have loved a couple of Russell Wilson, gimmies. So I guess I wouldn't have minded. But
the game plan against Russ is super easy, and the Chiefs
catch the interception.
Yeah. The Chiefs played cover 2 at like a 60% clip this week, and they never played cover 2. And like that's super easy. You just play cover 2 and you don't let Russell Wilson connect on a couple moon balls to Malik Neighbors. So we'll talk a little bit about that schematic shift in a second here. But the offensive numbers are not good. Daniel Jones leaving and playing super well, not good. Saquon Barkley leaving, being like the best running back ever last year, not good. Just bad vibes overall. And then we talked about the defense. They're one of the worst defenses in the league, despite having, I think, one of the most talented defensive rosters in the league, at least the starting lineup. You got like 6-7 guys on here that should be playing at a much higher level. They're 29th in EPA per play, despite having Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and Abdul Carter and Dexter Lawrence and Roy Robertson Harris, who's a good pass rusher, they're 27th in pressure percentage. That blew my mind.
It's crazy
seeing that number. And it's not like they've played like amazing offensive line performances. And the Chargers were able to get a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and they could not do anything. 27th in pressure percentage with this group is insane to me. They're one of the worst run defenses in the league. More on that in a second. Just overall, like, one big giant mess is absolutely accurate with where the Giants are at right now.
Yeah, the defense, I can't believe. Like, you tell me like Russell Wilson, they put up a bad offense, it's not a fit. Switching to the quarterback, fine, but the defense, as you said, Lawrence, Robertson, Harris, Burns, Thibodeau, Adebo, Newman, Holland, Drew Phillips, Banks. Like, I don't have to love all these players, but you can't deny there's at least investment.
That's a lot of talent, man.
That's right, a lot of talent. Right. A ton of drafted, highly drafted, or expensive, or both talent. And they're, here 29th in EPA per play after facing the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Commanders. Like, that's really bad. That's really bad. I don't know how you can be that bad with that much talent, but there they were.
Yeah. So the Giants schedule, man, they play the Chargers on Sunday. They play the Eagles, they play the Saints next week. They play the Eagles twice in the 3 weeks after that. They play the Chiefs. They play the Ravens. It's a brutal schedule. And Jaxson Dart is going to have to look like, the best rookie ever for them to keep this job. Like, they're probably going to win like 3 games tops. It's a tough schedule, and it's a bad roster. There's not a lot of good coaching going on. So, I've seen a lot of people, again, we talked about this on the previous episode. There's a lot of people talking about this is a trap game. This is a trap game. I don't know, man. There's a lot of bad on this Giants team that I'm not super concerned right now. And we'll get into some of the specifics here in a second, but this is a bad team. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah. And just to clarify, Jacob's asking if the teams are running a lot and that's why the pressure percentage is bad. It's not a percent of like pressure on overall plays. So like, even if they have 20 pressures, if they run it 50 times, that changes things. That's just the number or the percent of pressures or times they get a pressure on a pass rush rep, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So your pressure percentage doesn't go up or down on a run attempt. It's only the dropbacks. It's a good question.
Cool.
All right. Injury report for the Chargers. A bit concerning yesterday. I think we're trending a little bit more positive today. Mekhi Becton has not practiced in concussion protocol. At this point, I think it's safe to say that he will be out this week. Generally speaking, players who are in the concussion protocol, if they are not at least a limited participant on Thursday, they almost always miss the Sunday game. So it's unfortunate. He's been awesome. He's like, as a pass protector, has taken a huge leap forward this year. Yeah. Bradley Bozeman did not practice yesterday. He was a limited participant today. I think that's a positive sign. When you're a big offensive lineman with a back injury, you never want to see back-to-back DNPs to start the week. If I had to guess, I think he gets listed as questionable, and I believe Bradley Bozeman is going to play. I don't think this back injury is super serious, and Bozeman strikes me as somebody who really cares about his, consecutive games started streak. And so I believe that Bradley Bozeman will play on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree too. And if I'm not mistaken, there was no issue in game. It's not like he was some like Trey Pipkins or Becton who left the game or came back in the game. He played. So things are trending positive. I do believe he will play. Was there any indication that the center would be James? There was no Zion Johnson talk, was there?
No, I did not look at pictures yesterday, but I assume it would be Andre James.
Yeah, that would be my guess too, because I know they kind of switched to that as the permanent solution. And Zion looks great, so please don't move him. But that's back injuries. Bradley Bozeman versus Dexter Lawrence is going to be something else.
Yes. So a lot of people have asked about like, okay, so practice squad elevation, stuff like that. So Becton's not going to play. So Foster Sorrell will get elevated. So he is essentially your swing up into your offensive lineman. Austin Deculus is your swing tackle. And so hypothetically speaking, if Bozeman were to go down, I think they would just plug in Andre James. Now, if Bozeman were not able to play and James is starting, and then something happens to James, they would put Zion at center instead of putting, if Bozeman is out, they have to bring up Josh Kaltenberger. But I think they would play Zion over Josh Kaltenberger at center if anything, like worst case scenario happens.
Yeah, I think so too. I completely agree.
So Trey Pipkins yesterday, limited participant, full participant today. That is a good sign. I was told that his knee issue is pretty similar to the knee issue he had in 2022, where he essentially would not practice on Wednesday, limited, full practice, and then play in the game. So it's not considered a long-term issue, but it is just kind of a bothersome injury that he's going to have to kind of deal with for the next few weeks. So it is his left knee, his inside leg, which is not great because that's the leg that you're pushing off of. But it's to the point where he should be able to still continue to play.
Honestly, it's better news than I expected. I mean, even just watching him live, I can't believe he came back in the game as many times as he did. But when he was listed here, I thought, okay, limited, or maybe did not practice, or did not participate. The fact that he's full is actually impressive. Do I believe he's 100%? No, he's not going to be, but I'm pleasantly surprised and hopeful that this is him good to go and we'll be fine against the Giants.
Yeah, I think so. Also DNPs so far this week, Darius Davis, the wide receiver / returner. Not a huge surprise there. He did not come back into the game after he got hurt. I don't remember when he got hurt, but obviously a bummer that somebody like him has continued to deal with these very minor injuries. And then Will Dissly did not practice. So he was working off to the side, according to Daniel Popper, with a huge brace on his knee. So I kind of think that Dissly might be in a similar situation to Elijah Molden, where he might miss this game and also next game. But if it were a more serious thing, he would be on IR right now. So I would expect Tucker Fisk and Aronde Gadsden to continue to play in his absence.
Yeah, and things worked great, and we'll talk about that. You'll talk about that in a bit. But wouldn't it be nice to have all three of those guys out there? I guess, sorry, 4. I should include Conklin. My bad. But they managed just fine without him last game.
Yeah. And then some other minor issues. You see Deshaun Hand, Cam Hart, Dante Jackson. Those all were upgraded to full participants today. The one I'm curious about is Elijah Molden. And so he's been limited in back-to-back practices coming back from the hamstring injury. Obviously, the Chargers feel like they can kind of play this safely because they have Alohi Gilman and Tony Jefferson playing at a really high level. But one thing that was talked about online is kind of the issues that are being presented because you don't really have a very athletic, safety back there playing, the deep parts of the field. And that is Elijah Molden. He is their most athletic non-Derwin James safety. So getting him back, I think, would help, even though the first game wasn't amazing from him.
Yeah, bummer that we only saw that first game, but it would be nice to have him back there. I don't know how they end up breaking up that rotation, as you pointed out early. Now, after watching the film, I don't know how you take Tony Jefferson off of the field. Good problem to have. We'll see. I mean, this is a bummer from Molden on a 3-year deal with a nagging hamstring injury that bothered him before. I hope they just look. If for some reason Jaxson Dart shreds them, that sucks. I'd rather see Elijah Molden good and ready for the rest of the season than in this one game.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, on the Giant side of things, Graham Gano, their place kicker, has not practiced. He did kick minor kicks in the game against the Chiefs despite the injury. So I don't know if they've signed somebody else, but that's obviously knows whether their main kicker is going to be out.
You know where their practice squad kicker is.
No.
Who?
They signed Younghoe Koo to the practice squad? I did not see that. Okay.
Yeah, and I said, I joked on social media, if this were any other regime, I know exactly how the Chargers lose the game on Sunday.
Okay. So I probably would expect to see Koo this week then, based on that. Some other relevant injuries, Chauncey Golston, who you mentioned earlier, and Rakeem Nunez-Roches both did not practice today. Nunez did not practice yesterday. Those are two of their better run defenders. So I would definitely keep an eye on that one. Malik Neighbors did not practice yesterday, but he practiced today in a limited fashion. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. He was speaking to the media yesterday, and it sounded very much like a guy who is going to be playing and expects to be throwing the football quite a lot. So I would expect to see him out there as well.
From like a diva receiver, get me the football standpoint, which he kind of is. I think he would love to be.
I don't think kind of. He firmly is.
I think he'd want to be out there for Jaxson Dart and be like, please feed me the football. Like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, I'm not open. Don't worry about it. Just throw it to me. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And then Tyrone Tracy has not practiced yet with a shoulder injury this week. He is technically their starting running back, so it probably is going to be the Cam Scadaboo show. Devin Singletary is the backup after that. So something to keep an eye on this week.
Yeah, I was rewatching that Chiefs Giants game, and Tracy was like, just to start was so good, has been good for them. Him and Scadaboo fit like a really similar style. Bummer to see that he's hurt, but again, against this week, I don't mind.
Yeah, don't mind. All right, let's get to our coaching storyline focus. We obviously have the main ones on the screen here. Jaxson Dart versus Jesse Minter, I think, is the most important defensive one. But you wanted to highlight the Chargers run game. So what are you looking for out of the run game this week?
Yeah, for me, I like now that we have multiple weeks into the season, if I can take some things that we saw last week and do they continue into this week when their advantage presents itself. And, the Chargers were 13th in EPA, 14th in success rate last week. I was actually looking at the second half stats because that's generally the Hampton show there. And they were actually better in EPA and success rate without Najee Harris, just in that one game, which again was a little surprising because Najee just looked really good in all of his carries. To me, it almost looked like 100% success rate for Najee, but their numbers did go up in that game in the second half. So good for Hampton. Tucker Fisk was awesome. They flipped Joe Alt to the right side, as you pointed out. They had some success. You can't hand it off to Darius Davis for 1 yard anymore. So what is the evolution of this, and is there one? Now, we mentioned the offensive line. No Becton, limited Bozeman, I guess, probably a limited Pipkins, even though it does say full. The Giants are the movable object in this situation. Right now, the Chargers overall have not had a good rushing attack, but the Giants, as you pointed out already, 153.3 yards per game this year, 30th in rush EPA, 30th in rushing success rate. Yeah. And I didn't specifically look at the Commanders number, so maybe there's more there. But I looked at like the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. Like maybe Prescott ran for a ton. He didn't. I think it was 17 yards, and he fumbled once, which should have helped their EPA. Like this Giants team just can't tackle. Well, not can't tackle. They can't defend the run. And so they have the Giants defense, which isn't very good, a Chargers rushing attack that has been better, but like, can they continue that this week? And I'm very curious what Greg Roman does this week, especially with a shorthanded offensive line, to get things going, to keep things going. Is it as simple as just, hey, Herbert runs more, or the Chiefs did a lot of misdirection? Granted, usually that's like to kind of use Darius Davis for that for the Chargers with Greg Roman. I suppose that ends up being Quentin Johnston maybe this week, possibly Ladd McConkey, but I feel like the Chargers would use Quentin Johnston quite a bit there. So the Chiefs, like their biggest runs in that past game, not that there were many, I think it was like gains of like 8 and 12 or something, but hey, that's not bad. It's better than the Chargers have been. So does that misdirection, does that counter work? Does that kind of work for them? So just basically, how does Roman dress it up and call it this week?
Yeah, I think how Keandre Lambert-Smith plays into that, I think is also very interesting this week, potentially without Darius Davis. The run game should be very productive this week. And I think part of the reason why I really believe that this is going to get going is because of Omarion. Like, I think he's starting to figure things out from an angle standpoint. And, the biggest criticism I would have of him right now is that there are some times where he just feels like he can run people over. And like, sometimes you just got to make that cut to the next gap and you can get a few more yards. And, hopefully that's something that he continues to learn, but that looked better this past week against, obviously a very good, defensive talent wise in the Denver Broncos. The other part of this is Tucker Fisk is going to continue to play, and he legitimately is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. The amount of movement that he can get is crazy. And him and Joe Alt, when they're next to each other, they have a great chemistry. Things just work really, really well. And I think this week in particular, the Giants defensive tackles are obviously, the strength of the team with Dexter Lawrence, and, Nunez Roches might not play, but maybe that means Darius Alexander plays, Roy Robertson Harris. It's a good group in the interior. What you want to do against a team like the Giants is make Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and these smaller edge rushers defend the run. And so how do you do that? You get Tucker Fisk next to Joe Alt, next to Trey Pipkins, and you run a lot of counter towards them. You run a lot of crack toss, and you get Trey Harris in there and fitting in. So I think the Chargers are slowly starting to figure out that they want to get to the edges with Omari and Hampton. They want to give him some creases. Yeah. They want to give him some space, and they have the pieces to do that. And they're starting to really lean into that. The Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh rushing attack is so like duo middle of the field run game focused, but they have these, counter punches, no pun intended there, that they can throw at you. And they ran a lot of them last week with Omarion. So I think that is going to continue. And if they really lean into it this week, I think Omarion could have a huge day.
Yeah, they're really feeling it. There was the final drive. I don't remember if it was first down or second down, but that play to Hampton was so beautifully called because the Broncos were completely going the opposite direction. Hampton was by himself. Wish he had scored or something out of that one, but you could see it working. And Fisk was so good. Look, carried what he did in the preseason right to the regular season. I genuinely think he looks like slimmer, but still strong, faster. The number of times it was one Broncos defender, then climbed to the second one, at least 5 or 6 times on the field. Like he looks so good. I really think Disley has always been a good, like, to the first guy, movement guy, great blocker. But what Fisk does in a split second, the quickness that he has, but the pop, he's awesome. He looks better than I remember him even looking last year. And so please, like, that is working for them. I hope it continues. I don't remember last week. Did they start shying away from the Joe Alt right tackle thing when Becton went out, or do you remember a number of plays with him in there?
It was about half and half. There were a few plays in the second half too. I think it was just kind of how they I think once Trey started dealing with his injury, flip-flopping, I think that's when they kind of stopped doing that. So maybe that continues this week. Obviously, you can't just put Joe Alt at right tackle and then just keep running the football. Like, you have to have some kind of counter off that. Otherwise, it's going to be a very obvious tell. But, I think that's a great way for them to kind of adjust things. Maybe you do some unbalanced looks this week where Zion and Fisk are on the left side, and then you have Pipkins and Alt next to each other on the right side kind of deal. So Greg Roman I think he's starting to figure it out a little bit with the run game right now.
Yeah, it feels like he's more used to the personnel and what they can do. So I completely agree. All right, what is your big coaching storyline this week?
Yeah, I think we have to talk about Jaxson Dart versus Jesse Minter and how this is going to look like. So the Chargers coverage menu is, it's pretty simple. They want to play 2 safeties back. They want to be able to put a lid on the offenses. They want to stop, the big explosive plays. And if this were Russell Wilson, I think you stick to that. But from what I can kind of, assume that the plan is, just hearing, Brian Dable talk about it and Jesse Minter and like people who are like in the know, Jaxson Dart ran a shit ton of RPOs at Ole Miss. It's like the bulk of the offense. And if I'm Brian Dable, I'm trying to get the ball into Malik Neighbors' hands, into Cam Skadoo's hands, into Wan'Dale Robinson hands as quickly as possible. And I'm trying to avoid all kind of confusion. I'm trying to, make sure that he doesn't have to read through 4 or 5 progressions on every single play. I think they're really just going to like simplify this offense, spam easy buttons as much as they can. And so can Jesse Minter stick to his guns? I think is very curious, because if you just sit back into safety looks and they're just going to spam RPOs, the idea is eventually that the quarterback is going to make a mistake. But, do you make a mistake in that instance instead, where, maybe you miss a tackle on Malik Neighbors and he's gone? So I'm just curious if the Chargers can really afford to sit back and play zone as much as they want to. On the season, they're running cover 4 at a 27% clip, which is the second highest rate in the league. And then they're running cover 3 at a 33% clip, which is like 6th or 7th highest in the league. So they're playing a ton of zone. Can you play a little bit more man this week, disrupt some timing, Let Cam Hart, if he's back, Tarib Still, these guys, get physical a little bit and just disrupt some timing, because I think everything they're going to try and do is just going to be quick game, easy concepts where you're not having to go through your progressions against a match heavy thing. So I think if there's a game where the Chargers play more man, I think this is probably the one. And I know people are going to be like, well, you don't want to play, man against Malik Neighbors. I think you kind of have to, because you just want to disrupt the timing of how quickly they're going to want Jaxson Dart to get the ball out.
Yeah, very curious if they play man or how much man. I believe Dante Jackson has allowed the lowest passer rating in the NFL through 3 weeks for an actual starter. Hasn't quite been tested on the boundary by someone like a Malik Neighbors. So that can be something else, of course, but he's holding up. Very curious what they do. I think the way they had to force what are they called? The Raiders, that team that I forgot. The way they forced the Raiders to have to do the quick stuff, march, but they heated up Geno Smith quite a bit to force those decisions. And then every time Geno Smith thought he had something, it was, there's a pass breakup, there's a pick. Would love to see that this week. I just don't buy that Minter would just kind of sit and just see how things go. I think we'll get a little frustrated maybe once or twice. Maybe it's to Neighbors or a screen we didn't anticipate or something. Because Minter's, will game it up a little bit. He will gamble. Sometimes they throw it right over someone who's blitzing. So it's possible to give up a couple plays, but I would be fine with the 1 or 2 times they have a really good play that kind of bites them in the ass, or bites the Chargers in the ass. But the other 90% of the time, it's just crushing Jaxson Dart.
Yeah, I think this is a game that you want to be a little bit more aggressive. The Chargers are currently blitzing at a 14% rate, which is lower than the Gus Bradley Chargers were blitzing back in the day, believe it or not.
Yeah.
This regime obviously does a lot more simulated pressures, fire zones. Sure. So even if you're not technically bringing more than 4 rushers, you're dropping people, they do the dropping defensive tackle, edge rusher to the same side, flood the corner blitz kind of thing. The creativity is there. They're just not bringing more than 4 at a really high clip. So despite the Khalil Mack injury, they're actually, I think, 10th in overall pressure percentage. So again, kind of what would Jesse Minter do with these edge rushers that the Giants have is very interesting to me. I'm not concerned about this. To be clear, I do think that Jesse Minter is going to have the right plan in place. And I look at everything he's done against younger rookies, or at least younger quarterbacks, whether it was Spencer Rattler, Bryce Young, Bo Nix in the first Denver game. He's going to have a way to confuse Jaxson Dart and throw off the timing. I just think from a coverage standpoint, this is probably the game you want to be a little bit more aggressive and play some more man coverage.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not concerned about them not having a ton of film on him in the NFL, because I'm pretty sure they watched a lot of Ole Miss last year, for at least one player that they drafted. So I'm going to go on a limb and say they're plenty prepared for this one. Do we have many Jesse Minter versus rookie quarterback games last year? Bo Nix.
There was Bo. Bryce Young was in his second year, but Spencer Rattler.
They didn't play so well. Not a lot of film on those guys, and it didn't matter.
No, and he played a good amount in the preseason. Obviously, the teams are not throwing the kitchen sink from a schematic standpoint, but you should have an idea of tendencies. And I think the Giants will do a lot more easy buttons, but the bones of the Brian Daboll offense are extensive, and he's been in football for a long time. So maybe this looks more like the Alabama offense he ran as opposed to the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen offense, but I think they'll be ready. The one thing from a run game standpoint, they're going to have to be ready for Jaxson Dart's legs. He is going to be able to run the football. They would get him out 4 or 5 times a game, even when Russ was starting, and do some zone read kind of concepts. So that is one thing to keep an eye on. I don't know how he is as a true scrambler. I don't think we will until that happens in the game. But I do think they're going to design some runs for him just to kind of get his confidence going, potentially get some easy gains. So that is definitely something the Chargers will have to be keyed on, as opposed to playing Russell Wilson, who they would not have to be prepared for.
No, unfortunately. I think they've been doing a pretty good job with it. I even think Troy Dye had a bit of a bounce back game last week. Not specifically with watching the quarterback, but I think he did have definitely one good chase down out of bounds. So I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. Before we continue, our audio audience is going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Chargers at Giants preview. All right, what we're excited to see, I mentioned this earlier, but the tight end encore of Oronde Gadsden and Tucker Fisk is what I am most excited to watch. Obviously, you never like to see a player like Will Dissly get injured, but the young guys were so good in their respective roles last week. It's one game, but Oronde Gadsden averaged over 3 yards per route run last week. He was targeted on his first drive. He was targeted on the last drive. He had a red zone target. And again, this is kind of a very positive tight end friendly matchup where the Giants are weak at linebacker. They should be better at safety than they are, but the safeties are not really like performing really well. And I think you could see maybe some tight end screens to Oronde this week. I would not be opposed to that. So I think Oronde could have another positive game. And then I talked about Tucker Fisk and his ability as a run blocker. Again, to me, this is just a game where you really want to spam edge runs, and Tucker Fisk is a key part of that. So I think we'll see the tight ends play a very key role again. I am curious kind of what happens when Will Dissly gets healthy and Tyler Conklin was so Tyler Conklin and OG essentially split snaps 50-50 last week. I think each played 22, but Conklin had one target early on like a hook route, and then he had the screen. But OG was very involved early. He was very involved late. So I am curious just to see what happens when Will Dissly is healthy. And I think his role's maybe potentially a little bit more safe than Tyler Conklin. But Oronde Gadsden is going to continue to have positive moments, I would think.
Yeah, they weren't kidding when they said they had a plan for him when he was on the field. Now they had to wait 2 games to actually get him onto the field. But once they did, it was like, yeah, let's just go to that guy. I don't know how many targets he'll get, but every target that he got, and certainly every catch that he had, I mean, it was the rollouts, it was the red zone target, like you said, it was fourth quarter, first quarter. You would have assumed this guy was starting the entire time, and started last year too.
Yeah,
and sure, we were concerned about the blocking reps. The route running was always there, always a good receiving option. But if you got Fisk and he's handling his business, and you want to do whatever you want with Scott Matlock and how that works, Gadsden as a receiver. No questions. So he's doing great so far. I don't anticipate things go away. I was kind of bummed in week 1 when you have Conklin has 2 really like interesting wrinkles and 2 interesting catches against the Chiefs, and then against the Raiders, it was like, wait, did he play? And then week 3, it was like, what happened? Oh, there's a screen. Oh, he dropped it. It's just like, that feels like a bit weird, a little bit failure to launch. But with Gadsden, it was just like go, 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 go. So hopefully there's no fading moment here. I don't need him to have 50 yards in this game to say he's still a contributor. He is still young. I'll just go with my next point. I'm excited to see Ladd McConkey. Now, we said it last week, but now we really mean it this week.
1 week early.
Again, never wrong. Ladd McConkey should go off this week. It was Andrew Phillips for the Giants. I'm forgetting names today. Has given up 227 receiving yards, which is the second worst for a corner this year, behind Terrion Arnold, which makes me sad. But anyway, wrong about Arnold, right about Phillips. So, 50-50, right? Ladd McConkey is going to do just fine, because I was watching the Giants game, Giants-Chiefs game. A lot of it is, the way that Andy Reid can get these guys open, motion, moving guys around, etc. But like it just screamed Ladd McConkey watching that game. And I'm sorry, Juju Smith-Schuster is not Ladd McConkey. So I'm pretty confident in watching this group here and how they spam McConkey. So anyway, if Gadsden doesn't have a great game, I think it's because McConkey had a $150, and we're all excited to see that one.
Yeah, second most as a corner, most as a slot corner specifically.
Yes.
So it's been tough sledding for him. One thing I was curious about was that a lot of his yardage given up last week was Tyquan Thornton. So Tyquan Thornton, you think of more of kind of like an outside receiver, but the Chiefs were very intentional in putting him in the slot and be able to work vertically that way. And we've seen Ladd McConkey have huge performances in the past. So there's been a lot of like Ladd McConkey freaking out stuff online, and I imagine most of that is because of like fantasy football. But Ladd McConkey to me is still the best receiver in this room, and I think eventually that we're going to start really seeing that pan out in terms of the targets. But also, like, this is a pretty positive Quentin Johnston matchup, like, because the outside corners are horrible. So to me, this comes down to on the offense is just like, can you protect long enough? Because I think Herbert and these pass catchers can just absolutely dust all of their opposing matchups. Like I could see any number of these players having a big performance. I could see Keenan having a big game. I could see Quentin having a big game. I could see Ladd having a big game. Oronde having a big game. Omarion having a big game. So it's just there's a lot of positive matchups from a skill player standpoint. And so really, if you're Greg Roman, let's dial up those deep shots, man, and let's get this thing, cranking back up to where we want to see it from a deep shot standpoint.
Yeah, definitely don't need to panic about McConkey. We all last year, somebody needs to step up. Somebody needs to step up. And then they all, like 3 or 4 players have 40 or more yards, not including Ladd McConkey. And it's like, where's Ladd McConkey? The ball's being spread around. If QJ looks like that, great. If Keenan looks like he did, great. If Gadsden looks like that, great. And McConkey doesn't have 200 yards a game and isn't, on pace for the 1,600 we were hoping for, I'm okay with that, so long as the rest of it looks good and they're clearly doing just fine on offense. So, yeah, I think the Giants have 2 corners in the bottom 19 or 17 in yards allowed, and 3 corners of all DBs, I think, actually in top 47 or bottom 47 in yards allowed. Basically, 3 bottom 50 DBs in the NFL, and definitely 2 of the 20 worst. So, yeah, like you said, anybody can go off.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see who that player is, but I think eventually, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we should maybe have like a bigger Quentin Johnson discussion, because he's looked great and he's playing with a ton of swagger and confidence and things like that. He's on pace for like 1,300 yards, so he's scoring a lot of touchdowns. I still want to see some more against him, in a tougher matchup. I know he just played Patrick Surtain and played well. And I want to see, what he looks like in kind of a bigger moment situation. So he's playing great. I'm loving what I'm seeing on tape. He looks so much better, so much more confident. But let's see what he gets tested and what that looks like. So the receiver core, I'm not concerned about. Like, if anything, we should be very happy with how this is looking right now.
Yeah, no concerns at all.
All right. What is keeping you up at night about this matchup, Tyler?
Not much. I'm just making shit up. To me, it's an energized. With backs against the wall, you throw out Jaxson Dart. If there's a world where, there's a possibility, very small, there's a possibility it looks like Herbert against the Chiefs in his debut. There's a world where Jaxson Dart energizes this team and Malik Neighbors goes, oh, it's not Russell Wilson? Great. I'm going to go get this. Here's my 200-yard game. You like Joe Alt? You also could have drafted me. Here you go. Here's 200-something yards. It is possible that they energize things. And watching that game against the Giants or against the Chiefs, it was like there's a great Tracy run, great by Cam Scatteroo, and like some bullshit by Russell Wilson. It was just like, it felt so demoralizing as a non-Giants fan watching that game, because it was like, here we're going, we're moving. These guys are fighting and spinning and pushing and grinding, and it's awesome. They look great. The blocking was pretty good against the Chiefs too. And then Russell Wilson, they try the read option stuff, loss of 3, interception. So demoralizing. Something Jaxson Dart could do is energize this group. So it's possible, because they did for a while take it to the Chiefs until Wilson gave it all away. It's possible they make things a little bit closer, because, it can't be worse. That's all I got.
I think he'll certainly have the crowd more energized. At the start of the game, the crowd versus the crowd, what it would have been if Russell Wilson were continuing to play, I think will be more energized. I think that's going to change very quickly, though. You never know how these rookies are going to play in their first starts. Like, sometimes it looks like Justin Herbert, and you don't have a lot of film on the guy and it looks great. Sometimes it looks like Spencer Rattler. Sometimes it looks like Trevor Lawrence, who had a historically bad game in his opener. I think Dart is gonna have a tough time. I think the Chargers are gonna be ready for all of the RPOs. I think they're gonna be ready to do a lot of fire zones and just cloud things. It would not surprise me if we saw Tyrod or one of these guys get an interception. You just can see the confusion of, let's show cover, cover 0, we'll drop somebody. He thinks he has an opening. Tart rises up, gets an interception. Maybe it's Caldwell, somebody like that. I just think they're going to have an answer for whatever they throw at. And the Giants, I just don't think they're very well coached. I don't know if you saw this, but Malik Neighbors last year, his average depth of target was like 8.5 because they didn't have any other options. They were doing a lot of short stuff with him, a lot of designer stuff. This year, his average depth of target is like 19. He's been all go balls and like nothing else, post routes, stuff like that. I just don't think they're making smart decisions. So I think their run game is decent enough, and Cam Scadaboo is a difficult enough tackle guy that they'll move the ball on a couple drives. But when it comes down to these third and long situations, I just don't think Jaxson Dart is going to have an answer for what the Chargers are going to be doing on defense. So I think that's fair. The offensive line health is a little concerning. You know, Mekhi Becton missing this game is really unfortunate because he's been awesome, right? And like the pass protection is great. The run blocking has started to look a lot better. I would love for him to be out there, you know, against this specific team. But Jamari has played a lot of games, and maybe, you know, last week was just kind of a bad matchup for him with John Franklin Myers, but, you know, we'll see what happens there. If Bozeman does not play, I think this will be a little bit of a closer game, but I think the Chargers last week did also kind of figure out how they wanted to move the ball when the protection was not set. Like they did a lot more quick game. Again, the run game looked a lot better. They'll have more time this week to prepare for a scenario where Bozeman and Becton are not potentially out there. So I think the offensive line will be okay. I don't think it'll be as bad as it was last week, where you're scrambling in the middle of the game trying to figure out what Jamari can do, what Trey can do with his ankle/knee thing. Got poked in the eye also. So I think it'll be better this week. You'll have more of a plan, more max protections, things like that. But obviously you would want to have all of your guys out there with this kind of talent across the field.
Yeah, obviously. To me, the big bummer here is not just that Becton is out. It's that Jamari did not look good last week at right guard. Little unfair, of course. You're throwing him out there. Here you go, figure it out against this interior defensive line. But I was hoping for more. And I think it was, not that he's played a ton recently, but it feels like one of the worst games I've seen Jamari play, if not the worst game I've seen him play. And not just, I don't know if it's the weight loss or what, but Jamari can lose. You know, he's not the fastest guy. You know, he's not the most like technically sound guy. But generally, I think like he's a stout, solid option. And he just looked like, I've never seen really Jamari get his ass kicked, you know? Like that's usually not how I see Jamari lose. And so I watched him get it, granted, good players on the Broncos front, good players on the Giants front. So not having Becton out there is going to be a pretty significant loss. And I think we're going to see how good he was based on him not being out there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you feel fine about Jamari as a backup overall, but I think it's been very clear that Becton is a very significant step above than what the Chargers were getting without him. So hopefully he can stay healthy the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, X factors this week. I mentioned to your Tart. I think this is a very positive matchup for the defensive tackle room. And that we've complained about the Chargers offensive line. It's so much worse for the Giants. John Runyon and John Michael Schmitz in particular, both of them have pass blocking efficiency ratings under 96. Both of them, you know, have combined for 16 pressures allowed. Two of the worst run blocking into your offensive linemen in the league so far through 3 games. And again, that's PFF grades. Take it for, you know, what it's worth. But we saw last week the defensive tackles, I think, were dominant against a much better Broncos interior offensive line. And specifically, the way that they all performed against Quinn Miners, to me, was a really strong indicator of where this group is at. So I think Tart just had his best game of the season. I think he's going to continue to just ascend and get better and better. I think Jamari Caldwell just played his best game. I think he's going to continue to ascend and keep getting better. This is a matchup that the two of them, plus Deshaun Hand, plus Justin Eboigbe, plus Naquan Jones, this should be a game where they are able to, you know, impose their will. And hey, man, like, you know that you're going to get a ton of Cam Scadaboo carries, and you know that it's going to be a dogfight in the trenches. I think this interior defensive line group is going to rise up to the occasion and just have a day. And I think they have a very positive matchup going forward.
Yeah, they haven't not risen to the occasion, and they've done, as you said, against the Broncos and against the Chiefs, just absolutely kicking their asses up front for the most part, especially in the run game. Great pass rushers, not necessarily, but they do have some good plays in there. Yeah, I think 2 or 3 or 4 of these interior defensive linemen are going to be awesome. And, maybe we don't get a ton of like Thule playing great and having 3 sacks or whatever, but you're going to feel it. Like Dart is going to feel it with these interior defensive linemen. They can do what they did against Miners. I think was it Brian Baldinger who posted like a ton of clips of guys versus the Broncos interior. And it was like, whoa, I forgot I didn't like it's astounding how good these Chargers interior defensive linemen are against very, very good interior offensive linemen. So the Giants are not going to be any better. They're the worst. Can you say they're the worst interior they faced so far? Because technically the Raiders didn't have Powers Johnson either.
Yeah, the Raiders without Powers Johnson, I would say, is worse.
Yeah. So, and interior looked great in that game too. So it'll be someone's game. A Boygby had a good game last week. Granted, not all in the interior. So yeah, it should be a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this group this week. You have the special teams coverage and returns, which obviously Darius Davis's absence makes that even more of an X factor this week.
Right. That is the X factor. How's it going to look without him? Especially watching it live now, it's slow and it's uncertain, both especially in the returns. Like the returns themselves, watching them kicking towards us or away from us, I'm watching them and it just feels like they're in this like Tecmo Bowl, slow, kind of stuck version of running, and it takes forever, like they're in quicksand, to even get across the 25 to 30 yard line, and they regularly didn't. Davis with the fumble last week, so now how's that going to look this week without Davis? And then the return, like not the returns, the coverage. The coverage was more disappointing to me because usually you have, it's Jaw Taylor and whoever else. You kept Kendall Williamson, Tony Jefferson. These guys should be able to put up something decent. And for the most part, except for the very last punt when it mattered, they were really bad. So the punt returns, Marvin Mims had 2 for 28 yards each last week. So 56 yards on 2 returns with a long of 32 is not good at all. Kick returns, they had 5 of them for 28.2 yards per return with a long of 32 from Marvin Mims. The punt returns in particular were just really disappointing. People were giving like Jaw Taylor a lot of shit on one of the plays that I posted. The Broncos just blocked the hell out of him. Not a whole lot he could have done there, but it was not good. It was not good, and it's the first other than Cameron Dicker being Cameron Dicker. Granted, it wasn't a very far field goal. It's been not a great start, I think, for the special teams overall. It hasn't cost them. They're 3-0, obviously, so it hasn't been that bad. But I would also kind of include this with what is keeping me up at night. I don't know how good the Giants special teams are overall. Like we just said, their kicker's not even going to play. Granted, it's coup, revenge game. I believe their returner is Gunnar Olszewski, who we've seen have good games against the Chargers in years past. So how they do things, how they set up the offense and the defense to either succeed or to not fail or be in a bad position is an X factor this week.
Yeah, I think we saw Ryan Ficken make an adjustment to open the game where he had Omari Hampton back there instead of Hassan Haskins. And I think that would help if Omarion were back there, but it's like he's your best runner by far now without Najee Harris. Mm-hmm. If Najee is out there, fine, like whatever. I don't want Omarion Hampton taking more hits than he has to as a runner. So I think Ryan Ficken is going to have to make some adjustments back there. Obviously, Darius Davis, he is Ryan Ficken's like handpicked returner. I don't think he's going to go away. But is this a role where Keandre Lambert-Smith can get out there and shine? I think is very interesting. He had 1 kickoff return and 1 punt return in the preseason. So I think he might be the guy to do that this week. I don't want Ladd doing punt returns. Again, same kind of concept. He's your best receiver. I don't think he should be doing punt returns. Tareeb Still has been apparently doing some punt return stuff, all training camp and has been kind of working back there. Again, he's your best corner. I don't want like your best players returning kicks and stuff like that. So how does Ryan Ficken adjust to this? I think is really interesting. Looking at Pro Football Reference, the league average with the new kickoff returns is 25.2 yards. So obviously the kickoffs are way up. Every team is returning the football basically on every single, kickoff. 25.2 is not, it's not horrible. It's not great. That's league average. Darius Davis is like slightly above that at 25.8, but Hassan Haskins is very well below that at 23.5. So I expect Ryan Ficken to make some kind of adjustment at kickoff return, some kind of adjustment at punt return. You got to mix things up here a little bit. Otherwise, your special teams is just going to continue to, change things. Like there's 6 returners who are giving their respective teams over 30 yards per kickoff return. So you're talking about catching the ball at like the 5 and taking it to the 35 every single drive. That's a huge advantage of, a difference of 12 yards if it's on Haskins is returning. So it's not a problem. Like it hasn't, like you said, it's not costing them games, but it definitely could be a unit that should be improving going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. They will figure it out. It just seems like the one thing with the rule change and all the rule changes that Ficken hasn't quite figured out. It was best in his first year when Davis was an all-pro returner. That just has not quite been figured out. Everything else has been no problem. You couldn't even tell there's a backup long snapper in there, but yeah, I would love for the returns to improve.
I could tell.
Really? Okay.
Josh Harris is way more athletic than Rick Lovato.
That I agree with.
Like there were a couple times where Rick Lovato had to get down there and try and make a tackle, and it did not go well. So I miss Josh Harris a lot, and that could be a big reason why the punt return unit punt coverage unit has looked poor. So hopefully Josh Harris can get back there. He's eligible to return for the Commanders game. I don't know how that's going or not, but hopefully he can get back there soon.
Yeah, hope so.
All right, let's get to our game picks here. No surprise based on how this episode is going. We're both predicting wins. I am not going to put a score on this. I did not put a score on the screen yet because when I did all of this stuff, Riley Bozeman was a DNP. If Bozeman plays, I'm going to go a little bit higher than you. I'm going to say 27-13. If Bozeman does not play, I'll say 23-13, just because, backup center is, really not great against Dexter Lawrence. But I don't think this game is particularly close. I'm not like super concerned about the Giants in this one.
Yeah, I think the Chargers can win by 10 here. I think you can get a pick 6 in here. Dicker will be just fine. Herbert will get his, shoot, they can't run the football. Okay, here's the quick game. Let's beat the slot corner. There's just too many ways the Chargers can win this one. I feel pretty confident about this one. I don't think this is a Cardinals repeat. I think we're just very aware of what the what the Giants are very good at and what they're very bad at. And I think the Chargers will be just fine in this game. They might start slow. I think that's kind of why I'm not predicting them to have more than 24.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, the East Coast game, 10 o'clock game, who knows? A lot of traveling by them, of course, last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Some players are not 100% sure if they're going to be in. Are they even 100% when they're in? But I think they win by 10. I think this is a pretty easy one here. If the Giants score 16, if they score 17, 19, 20, like the Chargers will still win this one.
Yeah, so Tom pointing out the spread is 6.5 right now. It started at 5.5, moved to 6.5 after they announced Dart. So Vegas is telling you what that move did. If this were a game at SoFi, then the spread would probably be like 9.5, 10. So yeah. The slow start to me and like the health of the offensive line is the only reason why I'm not saying that this is like a 31-10 kind of game. Like I think those things do take it down a little bit of a notch, but I still think the Chargers should win this one pretty comfortably.
Yeah. Of the 4 games they've played, this is by far the one I feel the most confident in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Tyler, any other thoughts on this game before we get to some super chats and head out for the evening?
Excited to see what Minter does. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Same. Athir, our guy kicking us off here, says, Tyler, you saw the game on Monday Night Football. What did I tell you? Ravens are frauds. Listen sometime. Please stay tuned for my bold prediction.
I think their defense is certainly fraudulent. And I mean, Lamar did not look good. Don't get me wrong, especially in that second half. Henry fumbling for the 3rd game in a row is kind of insane. I don't expect those to continue like that.
Yeah.
Even the Ravens defense last year was like, oh my God, no McDonald. They're terrible. And by the second half, they figured it out. So I think they could get things going. They had no Kyle Van Noy, just a Metabuike. That seems like a whole nasty situation. That could be a season injury there. Yeah. And they're very non-committal. You can just, the way they talk about it, you can tell it's not going to be a good outcome for him. So when they get things back together, they'll be fine. I'm curious what your bold prediction was. Is that the next super chat?
It is the next super chat. Yes. I don't, there's a lot of Chargers fans kind of dunking on the Ravens right now. That division is not good. So they will still be a very competitive team going forward. They've had, played 2 of the 5 best teams in the league right now with the Bills and the Lions. So it's
right.
Tough matchups there, especially without, like you mentioned, their 2 best defensive linemen. So I think people are dunking on the Ravens at the wrong time right now. They still have a super explosive offense, and Derrick Henry's not going to fumble every game. Like this is a very severe outlier performance kind of stretch from him where he's fumbled in each of the last 3 games. So I expect that to improve. I think their defense will improve, but it has not looked good. I think 10 wins is good enough to win that division, though. Like the Bengals are a mess without Joe Burrow. The Steelers have one of the worst offenses in the league. The Browns can't score more than like 14 points in any given week. So they'll score, they'll win the division handily, and I think they'll just improve later on. But I think a step down from what I would have expected. Yes, frauds, I think, is a little too strong.
Yeah, definitely not frauds.
His bold prediction is that Herbie goes 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Chargers win 34-10 and is the MVP favorite Monday morning. Let's go 4-0. Bills Mafia, we coming for the ass. Herbie, my love.
The Bills play the Saints. So no, I'm pretty sure Herbert will not be the MVP favorite on Monday morning. I think Josh Allen's going to keep that one. They play the Saints at home. Oh my God. The Bills play the Saints, the Patriots, the Falcons, and the Panthers coming up. Yeah, God, give the MVP to Josh Allen already.
The Bills are getting the Patriots treatment from, the 2010s where their schedule is cake because the division sucks and they're going to cruise to 13, 14 wins. And I know Athir thinks the Chargers are going to get 13, 14 wins too, but it's going to be a while until Justin Herbert can be the favorite. He's number 3 right now. I think he will surpass Lamar Jackson sooner rather than later for the second, especially if the Ravens keep losing. I can't believe, man, like whoever loses the game on Sunday between the Ravens and Chiefs falls to 1-3. That would not ever have been on my bingo card to start the year.
No. Yeah. So if the Chiefs, for MVP odds, you're hoping for a Chiefs win to get Herbert up to that second spot. Frankly, you could argue he should be, considering his team is 3-0, but Lamar's still Lamar.
Yeah. The more losses for the Chiefs, the better. I think the more that they can lose without Rashee Rice is the better for us.
Yeah.
Like if they can be 2-5 when he is back, that's great. Or wait, that's bad math. That would be 2-4. And then he comes back. That would be great, man. Because 2-4 that's tough to come back from. So the more losses for the Chiefs, the better at this point.
We win either way. We'll win twice on Sunday.
Yeah. Mr. Dark Chow Chow wants to know our least favorite day 2 or 3 pick that we can remember.
I'm assuming we're meaning Chargers day 2 or day 3 pick. And without the revisionist history of it, I mean, Trey Pipkins was my first, like, who the heck? Where's Sioux Falls? Couldn't tell you about that one.
Yeah.
And day 3. I don't know if I can hate a day 3 pick.
No. No, dude, the answer is JT Woods. The answer is JT Woods.
Oh.
We had to do some major copium after that one, but you and I like hated his tape, and then he was like consensus, 5th or 6th round pick. They took him in the 3rd round ahead of Nick Bonito, by the way, which is super fun to remember. So that's easily the choice for me.
Yep, that's probably it. It sucks because at the time we were like, okay, Brandon Staley gets his safety, his year 2, he's the heir apparent to Nasir Adderley, tons of traits. Here we go. Yeah, was that the same draft as Trey McKitty? No,
that
couldn't
was
possibly do that to me.
No, that was after. Trey McKitty was the 2021 draft. Woods was 2022. McKitty could also count. I liked his tape as like a 6th or 7th round tight end, but
sure,
yeah, 3rd round was kind of crazy too.
I didn't watch him, and frankly, at least his rookie year was kind of gas, like pretty good blocker, and then it just was
Yeah.
dreadful. Negative yards in the preseason to close out his career. You should have been there when everyone listening live, when Arjun saw that the Chargers drafted a fullback in Xander Horvath instead of anybody along the offensive line, which they desperately needed. You want to see an analytics guy just go off. He was unhappy and swearing up and down Vegas Boulevard.
Yeah. People are saying Craig Mager. I was not paying attention to the draft at the time.
Yeah.
I knew who like the first round picks were because I like college football and stuff like that. I had no idea who Craig Mager was. So I can't really comment there.
Yeah. If you talk about the outcome of the player, sure, but I definitely was not. I had no idea who Craig Mager was at all.
Yeah. People talking a lot of day 3 picks. Day 3 picks to me, it's like if they become any kind of reliable starting caliber player, that's great. Like the chances of a 4th round, 5th round pick becoming a starting caliber player are so much lower than people think. It's why like I will defend Alohi Gilman because he was a 6th round pick. They drafted him to play special teams, and he's been inconsistent, but when he makes plays, like he can be an above average safety for you. And a 6th round pick, that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah. When all is said and done, people like, let's say this is final year with the Chargers. People might say like, oh, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Because that's just kind of how fans are with Gilman sometimes. But realistically, great career. Like great career for where he was drafted.
Yeah, he was a no-star recruit who started his career at Navy. For him to be an NFL vet of like 8 years or whatever it is at this point, that's a great career. That's a great career, great return on investment for the Chargers also. Matthias says, GAC headline, Bolts advance to big game. Let's go. I assume this is like, he's heavy on the Chargers to the Super Bowl. So I assume that is what that
is. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I would expect nothing less. Let's get through the whole season. At this point, the only thing stopping them is their health.
Yeah.
We're losing players by the day. So please hang in there.
Yes. Luis Godfrey wants to know, did the Chargers win because of overthrows, missing wide open receivers, or is that pure Broncos fan cope? I think it definitely helped that he did not hit on certain things. But I think the Chargers wanted him to have those throws. And if you really like watch the quarterback tape, there's a lot of times where Bo Nix just goes immediately like touchdown to check down. And he's just not the kind of quarterback who can go 1, 2, 3, 4 progressions. Like he's going to go deep shot, or he's going to go to Dobbins or whoever the check down is. So the Chargers knew that, and they were trying to force their hand. I think it didn't go super well all the time. Like I think they would have loved to have, Dante Jackson back there a little bit quicker, or Alohi Gilman back there a little bit quicker. But I think his deep throws are like you want him to throw those passes because you don't believe that he can make those throws, and ultimately that's what happened.
Yeah. Did the Chargers win because of overthrows? Now that I've sat and been out of the stadium and away from the win, the Broncos definitely screwed that game up as much as the Chargers wanted. I mean, they had I think 10 penalties for 90 yards, which killed them. I think they had like offensive pass interference when they were at 3 in the red zone. That brought them back.
A big play,
yeah, all that sort of stuff. So the stadium that I was in was about dead silent in my section on that flea flicker. We just watched it and just nothing. It was dead silence in the stadium because that was a go-ahead easy touchdown. Didn't make it. That 3rd down play didn't make it, or 2nd down play, whatever it was. So they were kind of lucky the Broncos screwed that one up. And as you said, like Bo Nix can't hit those throws, and I'm glad that he couldn't, which is crazy. That just multiple weeks in a row. But yeah, it wasn't great.
I think they learned from the first game last year where you would rather Bo Nix's arm beat you than his legs. And as long as you can keep him in the pocket and dare him to throw, then you mostly feel really good about your game plan and your chances to win. And I think that's ultimately what happened. The Broncos they kind of are always the penalty team. Like Sean Payton, for as attention to detail as he is and all of this stuff, they almost always are very poorly coached in that regard.
Yeah.
So I don't put a ton of stock into that one. But yeah, Bo Nix missing throws helped. I think Herbert playing out of his mind is a huge reason why the Chargers won as well. Keenan Allen played great. Orlando Gasson played great. So it can kind of go both ways that the Broncos lost the game as much as the Chargers won. But, I think this game really was as simple as the Chargers had the better quarterback, and that's really how it played out.
Yep. And Derwin James, who
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh says is the best player he's ever been around. Which I'm like, what happened to Zion, first off? And then what happened
The disrespect.
Disrespect, man. That was quite a statement. Navarro Bowman is literally on your coaching staff. And plenty of
Patrick Willis,
players.
Hall of Famer.
Willis, Joe Staley, all those guys on the defensive line, Smith, both Smiths. So, hey, you know what? Whatever.
Dude, he was on the Chargers with Junior Seau.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot that. Yeah, it was. I thought it was like a coaching quote, but I realized you're right. As a player too, plenty of good options. Yeah.
I think he just gasses up his players, man. And
yes, he does.
He called JJ McCarthy like one of the best college quarterbacks ever. Like, did he actually believe that, or was he just trying to gas up his guy? I think it's probably the latter. So this is just kind of who he is. But I love the fact that after the post game press conference, he's like, "This is the best safety ever." And then the next press conference, he's like, I think I undersold Derwin James. He's the best player ever. It's great, man. Like I love listening to him gas up his players, and I will always love that about him. Like, when he goes on to the Rich Eisen show and says, "Hey, like I woke up at 2 a.m. last night and just thought to myself, I need to get Justin Herbert to the Hall of Fame." Like I love it. Like I will eat all of that up. Continue to gas up your players, coach, as long as it's like within reason.
Chargers players, no problem. JJ McCarthy, although he did go, pretty early in the draft, earlier than I would have guessed.
For sure.
Yeah.
Alex Bridgeforth says, "Love listening from Kentucky. We appreciate that." We have a lot of like East Coast fans that listen to our show, which I think is cool. Herbert, Hampton, greater than or equal to Rivers or Tomlinson? Thoughts? Other current dual comparisons to Charger history?
I'll tell you right now, I'll take Rivers and Tomlinson over Herbert and Hampton. Assuming we're talking about the prime versions of these players.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even if you like Herbert more than Rivers, which is fine, Tomlinson is LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah. We're talking about a player who I think most Chargers fans would argue is the best running back of all time. Even if that's a little Chargers bias, he's still like 2 or 3, like worst case scenario. I love Omari Hampton. I don't know if he's going to be a top 2 or 3 running back of all time. So yeah,
I wouldn't even see like Derrick Henry right now over LaDainian Tomlinson, or something. I wouldn't even say Barkley over Tomlinson, let alone Hampton.
Right. Could you say like, I was going to say, could you say more than Gordon, but he was not very good, long term. So, the Chargers have not had a ton of great duos. I think the interesting one long term could be like Rivers and Keenan versus Herbert and Ladd. Like that's probably the closest one that you could actually make an argument for.
Dual comparisons.
Derwin and Dayon versus like, Marvin Harrison and Junior Seau. Like maybe we can get to that point, but we need way more information, and neither of us watched Harrison and Seau.
I almost wanted to say like at their prime. We didn't get enough of it, but like Mac Bosa versus like Phillips and Merriman or something. I don't know if they were even how often they were on the field together.
Alex says, "Need a few more games to start the Herbert / Arande versus Rivers Gates combo."
Only 11,700 more yards to go to get there or something.
Listen, nobody is happier with the OG stuff than Alex Insdorf right now.
No. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Quentin Johnston. Now let's see. Herbert Quentin or Rivers Malcolm Floyd there.
I think you're
I know
probably
what my answer is, but
Quentin is probably trending more towards like a Vincent Jackson conversation. I don't know. Floyd was a great guy, but he only had more than 500 yards receiving like twice.
it might have been more than that. I think it was pretty. Let me take up some Malcolm Floyd stats here. He definitely
Might
had.
be underplaying him like crazy, but I don't feel like he was.
I mean, for careers, UDFA had pretty good. So 5,500 yards. All right, let's see how many.
Okay, 4 times. I'm sorry.
Oh, good job, whoever found that one. I really did.
I looked it up.
In my brain, I always feel like he had 1,000 yards once, but
His career high was 856, which he hit twice. So my bad. I undersold it a little bit, but
yeah, Floyd Mike Williams would have been nice. Peyton Marvin Harrison Jr. Herbert QJ. Okay. No. I was gonna say Alt Zion versus like Dielman and those guys.
a little early on the Zion stuff.
As we always are. No, the Herbert McConkey one was perfect. I can't think of a more recent one with enough data to justify. Okay. Harbaugh, Herbert, or Schottenheimer, Rivers?
No, Harbaugh and Herbert, I think, easily.
I don't know. Got to get there.
Yeah. The Schottenheimer offenses, like it was so LT favored that Rivers didn't really become Rivers until Norv Turner started coming around. And I think we're seeing Harbaugh help Herbert. You know, I think the elevation of Herbert is again kind of overstated, but I think Harbaugh is doing way more good for Herbert than Schottenheimer did for Rivers.
Gus Bradley, Jerry Tillery, or Brandon J.C. Jackson?
At least Tillery had some like moments. You know, there were a couple like 5 pressure games in there.
Sure. That's all I got, I think, guys. Okay. Chat, feel free to let us know.
Anthony says he's bolted TF up. Love to see it on a Thursday night.
Love it.
Puma says, I like Alex's videos and his ending statements about each team. I don't know if y'all seen them. He did skimp on the Chiefs. Can y'all crap on the Chiefs for me?
Well, Chiefs are doing it themselves. So all of the Chiefs speak for their own selves. You know, each week we'll come up with something. I personally hate the Chiefs, but like I can't crap on the Chiefs. I still have to respect that they're the current dynasty, if you will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I made the Giants the Titanic today, and the Raiders I put in jail. Yeah. The Donkeys were last week. Is it Commanders next? Nah, there's some politically incorrect stuff I can do next week.
Yeah. I was going to say, how risky do you want to get next week?
Stay tuned, everyone. Yeah, I'll keep it PC next week.
Yeah, like I said earlier, a lot of people are dunking on the Chiefs, and I get it. Like, it does not look good, but I think Rashee Rice coming back, Xavier Worthy coming back is going to change things.
Yeah, they gotta survive. They'll be much better with shocking their 2 best receivers.
Right. And Jalen Royals, the receiver from Utah State, has not played a whole lot. He should be coming back soon. So
yeah,
you know, the Chargers fans should be rooting like crazy for the Ravens this week, and then I think they play the Lions after that.
Yeah,
I've looked at the Chiefs schedule so many times.
I think it's Jags then Lions.
Okay,
but pretty soon.
So I would think they could beat the Jags, but you know, that would be they lose this week. It's 1-3. Beat the Jags 2-3. Lose to the Lions 2-4. That's great for the Chargers. So, you know,
man, how did they not make Baltimore, Kansas City a primetime game? Well, at least we get New York.
The primetime game, the primetime slate this week sucks too. It's so bad.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I will enjoy watching the Sunday night game just for Micah Parsons, but otherwise, forget it.
Yeah, I hope if I were a Cowboys fan, dude, I would make sure my season ticket went to a Green Bay Packers fan on Sunday night. Like, just protest the shit out of this game.
Yeah, well, I mean, Micah Parsons could even get refunds back for his own suite. So.
Yeah, that's gonna be a massacre. Broncos versus the Jake Browning offense and the Bengals is gonna be horrible. I
Yeah.
forget who the other Monday night game is.
Oh no, it's Dolphins Jets.
Oh, sweet.
I
Like,
can't wait to
why?
trade papers. Yeah.
Why?
I have no idea who decided that was the one. Yeah, at my New York at Miami. Jeez. That's brutal.
Yeah, the Bengals and Broncos being primetime, I get, because like you planned this thing with assuming Joe
Sure.
Burrow is gonna be on the field, but
Yeah.
nobody in their right mind wanted the Dolphins and Jets on primetime. That's stupid.
No, not at all. Not at the current states.
Our last one from our guy Garrett Elasar says, "Do we think more alt at right tackle? Was that something gameplay specific for Denver?" And he also wants to know, who would your ideal starting safeties be when Molden comes back?
That is such a difficult question. If Molden comes back, he's one of them. Assuming he's healthy, he is the best of the three. I don't know, man. Like Gilman in coverage when things are in front of him has played well, has had some really good moments. Tony Jefferson's been better. Like to me, the answer is Molden and Jefferson right now.
Yeah, I think if you're playing more traditional like cover 4, cover 2 looks, I think you can balance that out with Molden and Gilman. But I want Tony Jefferson on the field as much as possible. And specifically against the run, he's playing lights out. You know, he's reading things so well from a coverage standpoint. So I want Tony Jefferson on the field as much as possible. And I think of the three of them, Elijah is the best athlete. Like I think they need his, if he's healthy, I think they need his athleticism on the back end. So I think I would go Molden and Jefferson, man. I really would.
Frozen.
I got you.
Thank goodness. You try to close one tab and things crashes on you. Oh, am I gone again? No, I'm here again.
No, you're good. We got you. Gotcha.
Cool. It's just my own computer not working for me. Okay. Well, I did what he said.
Okay. That's probably a good place to end it then. Okay. That is going to do it for us tonight. 10 a.m. kick on Sunday morning. So get those breakfast sandwiches ready to go. Get some coffee going. We'll be live around 1:15, I would assume, depending on how the game goes. This could be a relatively early finish. So we'll be live shortly after the game goes final. Either way, after hopefully a Chargers 4-0 start.
Yep.
All right, you guys, as always, make sure to leave a like, comment, rating, review, all that good stuff. Does genuinely help continue to grow our show. Tell a friend, all that good stuff. And we will see you on Sunday. As always, bolt up.